All right, all right. Hey, good afternoon, everybody. You are listening to Chat with Kat. I am your host, Kathleen. We have a very special guest on our show. I'm actually happy to have him. I've been trying to get him to come on for a few months now, but he's finally here. My guest is André Luck, a powerhouse in B2B sports sales with a mission to help sports leaders bring modern approach to revenue growth. With a proven track record in revenue development, strategic partnerships, and team building, Andre is also passionate about mentoring the next generation of sports business professionals. Whether you're on the field, behind the scenes, or aspiring to break into the game, this conversation is packed with insight. So let's get into it, Mr. Andre. Welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me, and sorry for all the back and forth to get this going. I'm excited we could finally connect here.
Me too. Thank you so much again. So, Andre, welcome again. Tell us a little bit about your journey. How do you get into the world of sports business and B2B sales?
Yep. So I'm the co-founder of a sales and marketing company called Four Leaf Marketing and Consulting. It's me and my wife. We co-founded it almost a year ago now, and
Nice.
our last name is Luck, so that's where the Four Leaf comes in.
Ah,
But
okay.
we actually both met working in sports for the Arizona Diamondbacks. That's where I started my career. She's originally from South Florida. I grew up in Phoenix, Arizona, and you can see the Arizona State Sun Devil helmet. So I'm a Sun Devil as well. But that's actually how I got my start in sports. I worked in the athletic department as a my senior year of college, selling season tickets for football and men's basketball, and I didn't know opportunities like that existed. And that led to working in Major League Baseball for the next 17 years, where I worked with the Arizona Diamondbacks. Where I mentioned I met my wife there. We eventually moved to Houston. I went for the Houston Astros, so I got a little picture from
Oh, nice.
when we won the World Series in Houston back in 2017. But we got married there. We had our first two daughters there, and then came out here to South Florida. And I was the vice president of ticket sales for the Miami Marlins for a little over 4 years. So she got back home to South Florida, and I got to continue my dream of working in sports and specifically in Major League Baseball. So that's been our journey.
That is really cool and really impressive. What does it mean to modernize revenue growth for sports leaders? Excuse me.
Yeah, so I've been real passionate about studying what like the best B2B sales leaders do. And a lot of it's outside of sports actually, because in sports we do a lot where we focus on selling the team, we sell the players, kind of the wins and losses, but we aren't always keeping up with modern processes. And like a lot of the resources that get deployed get put towards the player side, not as much on the business side. So when it comes to data and technology and some of those things from a sales and business ops perspective, we're a little behind some of the top companies when you think of like the Microsoft, the LinkedIn, some of the startup tech companies. So for me, I've really looked to study what they do best from a sales and marketing perspective, and then bring that to sports and kind of modernize our processes, help us be more smarter with technology and data to make better decisions. So that's kind of a high level, but happy to dive in deeper if you got more questions on that.
Very cool, very cool. So you mentioned that B2B is, I guess, a little slow in the technological aspect. Do you foresee it ever catching up now that we're in the technology
So B2B not necessarily is a slow, it's more sports is
sports?
slow
Excuse
and
me, excuse.
adopting.
Okay,
Yeah, and I do see like AI helping us speed things up, work more efficiently. A lot more sports teams are starting to use it to give their sales teams tools so that they can spend more time building relationships. So a lot of administrative work that maybe salespeople are doing or people in business were doing, now you could offshore that to AI or technology, and you could focus on the things that really bring impact. And for salespeople, that's closing sales, that's spending
yeah.
time with their clients, spending time with prospects, and not as much administrative work like logging activities and things like that. Like you can let AI kind of be your buddy and support you through that.
Very cool. What are the biggest shifts you're seeing in sports and organizations generating revenue today compared to 10 or 15 years ago?
Yeah, so I started, this was 2007, what, 18 years ago, and it was a little more archaic. We were kind of old school. We'd pick up the phone, we'd have a list that we'd print out, we'd kind of highlight the list of everything we're going through. There's just so much more data out there. LinkedIn was very new when I was starting, and a lot of it was just kind of updating, here's my new job, or here's an accomplishment I had. There, we can use it a lot more for prospecting now. So let's say I was reaching out to you, I could, do research on you, your background, things that you've been posting recently. And now when I reach out to you, I can be more relevant with my message to something that's actually going to speak to you, maybe challenges you go through or goals that you're looking to achieve, or even call out like, hey, I noticed this post that you did. So it's something that's relevant to you, or then you kind of, we were more generic with our approach of like, hey, we work with business people, and here's how business people use tickets, taking it directly to sports. I think now we can be a lot more prescriptive, a lot more personalized and relevant with our outreach, which is going to lead to more meetings and more people getting back to us because there's just people are inundated with so many emails. Executives are getting hundreds, thousands of emails in a week. And if we send our email that's generic and then just kind of goes to spam or it doesn't stand out, just going to get deleted. Then we don't have a lot of success of what we're looking to do on the sports side.
Got you. What are sports teams and leagues leveraging B2B strategies to grow their brands and bottom line?
Yeah, it's a big opportunity. A lot of teams I talk to, the challenge they're going through is their sellers, they do a great job. Again, talking about the team, talking about the products, the features, the benefits of their tickets, but not having conversations with business people, articulating, here's the ROI, aside from you're just a big sports fan of, the Yankees, the Dodgers, but like how's that going to drive business impact? So from a sports team perspective, there's a lot of advantages to it. Usually businesses spend more than the average consumer, so you're growing your revenue quicker. They renew at a higher rate, so year over year, they're not as impacted by team performance. If they're seeing success, they're not only buying because the team's playing well. They're not dropping their seats because the team had a bad season. They're going to continue to invest. So a little more stability from predictability when you look long term. But I say the biggest one there is they just spend more. So when you're really looking at grow your revenues and compete across the other leagues from a revenue perspective, you need corporate partnerships, you need premium buyers, you need corporate hospitality to be sold. And to match that, and where I kind of come in is work with the sellers to have those conversations so that they're closing at a more effective rate so businesses can grow quickly.
That's a good answer. And the next question really kind of resonates with me. I think this is probably something that I might have asked you, but in a different way. So, what are some outdated tactics that you're still seeing being used in the industry? And how do you coach teams to, get out of that mindset?
Yeah, I think the generic practices are one where it's kind of a spray and pray approach. Like you're just casting a very wide net and like hoping something resonates. And that doesn't work anymore. You have to stand out. You have to be more personalized. So building a brand and a presence on LinkedIn, doing things like what you're doing, like, doing a podcast or putting videos out there so people and humanizing the process. I think, one of the things that is kind of coming back is getting out and networking and going to events, and like where we met was at a chamber event. So the fact that you have technology now that could help you with some of the administrative stuff, now you can go out and be more in person and things like that. So outdated, I would say, only using one method to try and get through to people, whether it's just email with a generic approach or only using phone call. As a salesperson, you really have to get out there more. And because people are so busy and there's so many salespeople out there and tools that could expedite the number of outreach and touch points you're doing, using video, using LinkedIn, having more personalized type messages is really going to help you stand out.
That's a good one. Can you walk us through a success story where your approach helped a client or an organization significantly, excuse me, improve their results?
Yeah, so one of my first clients was an NFL team, and I worked with their sales team to just modernize some of their sales practices and focus more on B2B. They did a great job, working with consumers and, kind of like youth sports leagues and churches and things like that, but really getting their team comfortable and confident to have conversation with business people because young sellers, they don't see themselves on the same level as an executive. They're like, I'm 23, 24, right out of college. What do I know about business? So we leverage tools like ChatGPT so that they could come up and be more credible when they reach out and say, hey, I'm reaching out to a manufacturing company and a VP of sales of a manufacturing company. What are challenges that they go through and how can our tickets help them with that? So now they feel more confident going into the conversation and having, hey, here's what I know people struggle with in your role and here's how we can help. And they're able to book more meetings. And one actually closed a 5-figure sale that like it never had sold that high of a dollar amount before. And so the confidence that comes out of that, where a week after going through training, you book a meeting with the executive, close a big deal, like you're like, all right, I believe in this now. I see this. So those are success stories I like to tell of like, all right, what's the benefit of this? It's you're going to get young sellers who are typically afraid to call a business person. And they're going to now have confidence having conversation with them and being able to articulate, here's the ROI of making this purchase. Aside from just being a big sports fan and talking fandom, this is actually going to drive business results for you.
Cool. You talk a lot about empowering the next generation. What's missing from how we're preparing future sports business leaders today?
I think what I had noticed as a gap was one, teaching them the skills so that they can thrive long term. So one I see is the future I see is in more business, high impact type sales. The things that are more administrative or transactional, like technology, AI could do that. So as I look ahead, if you're a young salesperson and you're doing things that maybe could get automated, you're at risk long term. So for me, I think from a coaching perspective, it's, teaching them the skills that are going to sustain and almost be future proof in an AI future type world. That's one thing for me. And then also teaching things that are actually going to drive results. I think we do a good job of providing content around, here's how I got to this spot in my career. Here's advice in my career, but what actually helps them make sales today. And so I try and be very intentional about the content I put out, the things that I do, the intentions. Like if I were a seller today, what would help me get a meeting booked today? What would help me if I have a deal in the pipeline that could help me close a deal? Not, smile and be positive and be confident. Like those are all great principles and those are sustain the test of time. But like today, if I was on a sales call, what's one thing I could do? I try and, be that intentional about the content I put out and the things that I teach that I think could help somebody today in their role see success.
Nice. What qualities do you believe define a successful leader in the sports industry now, especially with Gen Z entering the workforce?
Yeah, yeah. There's a lot of stereotypes, right, about different generations and what goes on, and it's crazy. Like I'm a millennial, and we were the ones who were entitled and this, that, and the other like 10, 15 years ago, and now we're the ones in leadership roles. So now we're saying it about the next generation. But I actually went through a training session with a team. I'm doing leadership coaching, and one of the topics we talked about was being a sales leader in 2025, and we talked about this next generation coming in and how do we prepare them for the sports world. And back in the day everyone was dying to get into sports and they would do anything to get into sports, but this next generation, it's less about the logo and working for a big brand. Like that's not as exciting for them anymore. It's more the purpose of what they're doing and the impact that they're making. So explaining the why and giving them opportunities to really make an impact on the bottom line and see that, and giving them experiences because they want to move up quickly and they're willing to move more jobs more frequently than maybe we were, our parents were. And so we got to adapt to that. So how are we preparing and creating an environment where they want to stay and they feel they're poured into, they can grow and develop, and there's a purpose there versus this company could pay me a little more, or they're going to give me room for advancement. Like I want to take all that off the table and show that they're being poured into and they're engaged and they want to stay with the organization that they're with, because they will quickly change roles. And I don't necessarily blame them. Like I have three daughters and I would probably give them the same advice when they get into their professional careers. Like if this job isn't serving you, we got to find something that is serving.
To piggyback off of what you said, you mentioned that a lot of them are not really driven by perks and rewards, but their why. Do you know what their whys are, or what you've heard maybe in passing, or mentoring?
Yeah, it's different, and it's different for each person, I'll start with, and I'll put it more in the perspective of what I'm seeing in sports. Again, it used to be, could you work for one of the big major sports leagues, the NBA, the NFL, the MLB? That doesn't matter as much anymore. Some people are fine, going to a collegiate organization or athletic department or a minor league team that's maybe more of a startup, and they can watch the growth and like they're fulfilled from seeing I started as like one of the first five employees, and here's how we've grown that. So it's less about, again, the logo and the brand, but the impact that they're making. And you could learn skills that are going to help you long term in your career. Women's sports is blowing up,
Yeah.
and a lot of people are looking to get and make an impact there because there's so much opportunity and so much purpose behind it as well. So that's one thing I'm seeing that's particular to sports and the sports business world.
Interesting. How can seasoned executives create space for innovation and younger voices in boardrooms and stadiums alike?
I think one is I'm big on exposure. So, not, coddling them, right? Like we need to show them and educate them on the business. We need to talk about how are we performing as a business? Where are we struggling? And not to come down on anyone, but so that they understand and know, like, here's what makes a business tick. Here's where we generate revenue. Here's where our expenses are. So I think that's one piece that, a lot of times, it's kind of like, all right, here's the executives that get to see this, but what are bits and pieces we could start to put out to the staff so they can see what that looks like? And if you're a young professional looking to grow, the metrics that your executives are focused on, so you understand the why behind it. I'd also think, creating a safe environment where you can make mistakes and mess up. That's not always the case. That's not always the situation. So like you walk on eggshells, or like feel like you have to be perfect, and that kills creativity because you got to nail it every single time, and it's just like a very toxic environment to be in and stressful. So obviously you don't want someone messing up all the time, but letting them know it's okay to make mistakes and coaching them through, hey, here's what we can do better the next time. I think that creates a nice safe environment where people can spread their wings, but they're also growing and learning at the same time.
Nice. How are technology and fan engagement involving the way teams think about business partnerships and sponsorships?
Yeah, I touched on AI a lot, but I think with technology now you can track more and measure more data. So it used to be a company is just like, hey, I'll put a sign up in the outfield, or I'll put, a sign in an arena and hope people see it. And you could kind of give stats on, hey, here's how many millions of fans go through the ballpark or go through the arena to kind of give impressions. But now you can be a lot more tactical of like what is an initiative that a organization's looking to drive, and how can we do a better job of that. So one, for example, I was talking to someone that worked for a company that's a corporate partner for sports teams. They're like, hey, we don't see the necessity of just putting a sign up anymore in an arena. We want to drive leads to our sales team. So what would be really creative to me is if a sports team approached me like, hey, here's how we can partner with you at your games, your events out in the community to collect quality leads that I can then get, she was in marketing, that I can then give to my sales team. And that then we can track the pipeline of like, all right, we partner with this sports team at these events. It created these leads. It led to these sales. So I think just the technology with data allows you to just be more creative and do different things that are actually going to drive business results. Not, we got our sign up and let's hope that drives sales for us.
That's a good one. Are there any emerging trends you're excited about that could reshape sports industry in the next 5 years?
Yeah, so one that I'm really excited about, and I think is going to take a while for people to get comfortable with, is AI sales agents. So what I mean by that, and like the very high touch, like very personal, relational type sales, I think you need a person. You need a human there. There's that relationship building aspect. There's parts of that that you can't automate, you can't outsource. But there's also a lot of transactional type work, whether it's customer service type issues or things like that, or trying to find out of the millions of fans that attended your game, who are the ones that are maybe interested in learning more about, season tickets or a certain ticket package or group outings. Right now, the process is you have junior reps, earns, whatever it is, banging out a bunch of calls, talking to people that maybe don't want to talk to them, or not even answering the phone because not a lot of people answer their cell phones anymore, answer
Right.
their phones in general.
Yeah.
But if you have a robot that can, expedite that and go through the calls, and they're starting to sound a lot more human-like. Again, based on your reaction, we're still a ways away, but you talked down the road. I don't know if you put 5 years down, but
I
I see
know.
that coming. I see that
Yes.
happening.
Very exciting.
And I think that could allow teams now to focus their sellers on the things that are going to drive the most impact versus, kind of menial administrative type tasks.
Sales is still a people business, Andre.
It is. It is. And this will allow you to talk to the people that actually want to talk to you.
So, how do you would you, I guess when the time comes, or I guess from now until then, how would you teach authenticity and connection in a world that's becoming very digital?
Yeah. One thing I talk a lot about online and on LinkedIn is quality over quantity. And, as sales leaders, we feel comfortable if we see a lot of activity happening. We see high call numbers, high volumes, because, that shows effort and activities happening. But especially when it's more high impact sales, it's quality outreach. So, are you reaching out to the right people? Are you getting meetings booked? Or these meetings staying? Like, are you creating quality opportunities? So for me, it's really about making sure that there's quality in the outreach versus just, a quantity number, which allows people to be more authentic and genuine in their approach versus, oh man, I haven't hit my call number today and my boss is going to say something if I don't. So now you're not authentic. You're just, trying to get to as many people as possible, just banging about calls to any and anyone who might talk to you versus, I'm going to be thoughtful and, really think about, all right, I'm reaching out to Kathleen, but what's the message that's going to resonate with her? Is she the right person I should be reaching out to? Is there a need in their business so that you're not just spamming people, hoping and spraying and praying, hoping that they want to talk to you, but we're actually speaking to people that have a need. There's a reason why you're calling. You've been able to help people that are similar to them, and you're more authentic and genuine in your outreach.
Got it. What drives your passion for this space? What gets you up in the morning? What's your why?
Yeah. It's not even the space. I think I've been blessed to have a long career within sports and have some really cool experiences and meet some great people. But just my why generally, my faith, that's first and foremost. I'm blessed that I've gotten this opportunity. I'm blessed that I get to get up and do it every day. So, that's the first thing I say when I wake up with a quick prayer. My wife, she's amazing. Obviously, she's my co-founder in the business, but also just my partner in life. So making her proud and seeing her excited and proud of the things that we've been able to do together has been great. And then obviously we have our three girls. So they're 9, 6, and 4. I'm surprised one of them hasn't run in here yet, but to blow
Thank
up the
you.
interview. But they're amazing, and I just think about the future and setting a good example for them. And one of the parts of like the entrepreneurial journey is they get to see a different route than maybe what a lot of us saw coming up of, all right, you work for a business and you stay there and like that's what work is, but are you doing work that you're excited about? Are you doing work that you're passionate about and getting them to be part of it? And we put them in our content sometimes and they get to see, me recording a video and putting that on YouTube and they're like, oh, they give me a hard time because my likes aren't as high as like their YouTube influencers, but they're the passion for me. They're what gets me out of bed every morning, who I thank God for and, want to do this for. And then I've been blessed also just in my career to have some great leaders who poured into me. And I want to pay that forward to, again, that next generation that I talk a lot about.
That's good. What's one piece of advice you'd give to someone trying to break into the sports business side of things right now?
Yeah, there's two things that immediately come to mind. First is understand how sports teams make money. Because even if you're going to be in sales or not, like at the end of the day, they're trying to get more butts in the seats, as they always say, trying to drive more revenue. So if you're in finance, if you're in marketing, if you're looking to get into strategy and analytics, like how can you help the bottom line? How do they make money and what can you do to help drive that? I think that's one just from a business perspective. Understand who you are and be comfortable in your own skin.
Mhm.
Early in my career, and I don't know if you could tell from my demeanor, I'm a little more laid back than most sales people, sales leaders.
Are
They're high energy, they're banging the desk, they're ringing the bell,
yeah.
all that stuff. Like the stuff you'd see like Wolf of Wall Street, the car salesman type people. And so, getting into sales, I was like, oh, I don't know if this is a fit for me. And that was a conversation I had with my mom. Like she worked in HR. She's like, you don't seem like that, and I think she meant like the sleazy car salesman type person, but those are things that I was insecure about in my career. I'm like, do I have to sound a certain way? Do I have to act a certain way? Do I as a sales leader, we would take these personality assessments just so we understood like our strengths and weaknesses across the leadership team. And my counterparts and my bosses would be like, very gregarious, outgoing, outspoken, and like we get all excited reading theirs, and they read mine. And it's like, can do consistent tasks, pretty much just like boring, steady Eddie, like gonna do his job and set up a good sound process. And like I'd be insecure about that. I'm like, I wanted mine to sound like everyone else's. But what I learned is, that consistent, that measured approach was actually my differentiator. And that's what, helped me with that group to, kind of offset things and be a different type of leader and, hit on different skills and point out different areas for growth for some of my team members.
That's good. So we actually came down to the end. Is there a final message that you would like to say before we end the show?
Wow, final message. No, I think that last piece is the biggest. Doing something that you're passionate about, doing something that, is a purpose to you. Everyone's on their own journey. So it's very tough, especially, and this is something that I have to talk to myself daily about. Like, I'm not even a full year into entrepreneurship, but I look at people that are 5, 10 years and like their journey and like all right, like, how do I get to there? And it's like they
Right.
all had to walk one step at a time. So,
Yeah.
there's going to be some high winds, there's going to be some low lows, but like all you can do is take it one step at a time, show up consistently.
Yep.
And, there's no easy button, there's no shortcut to success. So, that would probably be, where I close it with and just being comfortable who you are within your own skin, taking your own path and your own journey.
That's a good word. And where can people connect with you or learn more about your work?
I think the best place is going to be on LinkedIn. Post there daily. So connect with me, André Luck on LinkedIn, or shoot me a message. Happy to connect with anybody and just chat about either what it is that I'm doing or ways that I could help other people. But LinkedIn's going to be the best place.
Awesome. Thank you so much for finally being on the show. You're now
Yeah, thanks
a
for having
stranger.
me.
So we definitely have to reconnect on your annual anniversary or your 1 year to see how Four Leaf did.
For sure. I'll be sure to do that.
All right, perfect. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Kathleen.